St. Simon's Island, Georgia, is a place of abundance. An abundance of water, slowly, rhythmically, moving in and out of the tidal marsh with barely a whisper, hardly a wave or wake. An abundance of oyster shell middens, always underfoot or just below the black sandy surface of earth. These ancient dumping grounds of past generations have enriched the soil, creating optimum growing conditions for maritime forests that yield an abundance of food, shelter, and community for indigenous plants, birds, insects, reptiles, mammals, humans. These forests, waterways, habitat are all part of the Great Altamaha River Conservation Corridor, a complex system of streams pulsing with billions and billions of gallons of deep, dark, nutrient-rich water, teeming with life. Out of the Altamaha flows the Hampton River, and it is the Hampton and its tributaries, along with the Atlantic, that lap the shores of St. Simon's, one of 14 barrier islands protecting the 100-mile-long coast of Georgia. On the northern end of the island is Cannons Point Preserve, a jewel in the conservation crown of coastal Georgia. Now, a total of 644 acres of intact maritime forest, with a conservation easement monitored by the Nature Conservancy. Cannons Point was acquired by the St. Simon's Land Trust in 2012, near the halfway point in the organization's 25-year history. At that time, with a staff of only 3 and being in operation for little more than a decade, to be able to purchase the Cannons Point Peninsula was extraordinary. Up until then, the largest tract of land owned by the trust was a 40-acre marshfront property along Frederica Road, donated by Mrs. Dorothy Gilbert to honor her late husband, John. Today, in addition to the John Gilbert Nature Trail and Cannons Point Preserve, the Land Trust owns or holds conservation easements on 35 properties, comprised of 1,400 upland acres. Those acres account for roughly 14% of St. Simon's total land mass and have a value of, conservatively, $70 million. That wasn't always so. Near the end of the 1990s, residents and visitors alike began to see that St. Simon's was changing at what felt like breakneck speed. It was no longer the constant heaving of the Atlantic and the Altamaha that was changing the shape of the island. It was also the number of new houses being built, the increase in commercial enterprises, the surge of traffic with cars and construction trucks barreling across the causeway and spilling onto the island's roads. What only a few years previously had been considered a sleepy coastal village where the sidewalks were rolled up during the winter and many streets remained unpaved, where quiet, ink-black nights were taken for granted, was being dramatically altered. A handful of locals not only took notice, they took action. In 2000, the founders of the St. Simon's Land Trust invested heart and soul in stemming the tide of change. That year, they incorporated the St. Simon's Land Trust with a mission of preserving and protecting the island's natural and scenic beauty, and to enhance quality of life for present and future generations. think about the what ifs. What if the old stables corner, where for decades children took riding lessons, boarded their horses, saddled up and rode through the surf on Sea Island, had become the site of a proposed gas station, instead of the 2-acre green space with its majestic live oaks? What if the community had not come together to acquire the Cannons Point Peninsula, create the infrastructure and management plan for a wilderness preserve with public access, where critically important scientific research is ongoing, and where the property serves as a platform for education? What if, over the course of the past 25 years, tracts of land from the southern end of the island, like the 10-acre Gateway property at Gascoigne Bluff near the entrance to the Torres Causeway, had not been secured? What if the properties from Gateway to Kingsway, where the Land Trust has protected 4 acres looking out on the St. Simons Sound, had not been acquired, or the purchase of the old Chevron corner at the Demery-Frederica Road roundabout? And what if important mid-island parcels along the Frederica Greenway had not been protected? For example, the Land Trust's office at 1810 Frederica that had been slated for the site of a Dollar General store. And further north on Frederica, the protection of magnificent 300-year-old live oaks where 3 new homes had been approved for construction. What if the land where the historic Harrington School, now more than 100 years old, had not been acquired by the Land Trust? Or the 17 marshfront acres at the end of North Harrington that are key to preserving the important heritage of the Harrington community and the Gullah Geechee culture? And of course, there are hundreds of protected acres along Lawrence Road, including Wally Preserve, Sinclair, Carrill Trail at Oatland, and Cannons Point Preserve. Without protecting these properties, more than 1,500 additional rooftops could have been built across the island. That equates to an excess of another 3,000 cars and unlimited numbers of construction vehicles on the road every day. It means hundreds of acres paved with impermeable surfaces, exponentially increasing flooding and burdening infrastructure to the breaking point. The greatest what if, however, is the negative impact on future generations if these 1,400 plus acres had not been conserved by the current generation. Invaluable habitat would have been lost forever. Centuries-old live oaks would have been felled for the construction of yet another subdivision. Wetlands would have been covered with concrete and asphalt and no longer able to function as aqua filters for the entire county. Green spaces would be diminished and in some cases totally erased, threatening the nesting areas for native and migratory birds. What if we do not continue seeding for the future? This island has changed dramatically over the past 200 years. And the changes have accelerated over the past 20 years, the past decade, even over recent months. But because of the vision and tireless work of the Land Trust family, because of you and the generous community-wide commitment to coastal conservation, future generations will be assured of enjoying the natural beauty that is still on St. Simons in abundance. They too will be able to drive or bike under the moss-covered trees of the Frederica Greenway, paddle a kayak through the ever-changing palette of marsh grasses, hike hundreds of miles of paths and trails that crisscross the island. They too will be able to breathe in the air of a rare and sacred place, lush with natural beauty, filled with history and heritage that has impacted the entire nation. St. Simons Island is a magical, mysterious, spiritual, moss-draped wonder world where the number of birds that fly across the night skies during migration seasons are in the millions, where one live oak tree and the moss that serves as sleeves to its branches is habitat to countless species of insects and woodland animals, where the songs of ancestors echo among tabby ruins, where the voices of tomorrow's children will praise you for the foresight of helping to preserve this coastal Eden. On behalf of those children and their children, on behalf of all those who came before us, on behalf of the visionaries who took action in protecting in perpetuity this magnificent place, we are abundantly grateful. Thank you for your generous investments in coastal conservation. Thank you for being our partners in this important work and in continuing to seed for the future.